Welcome. Welcome to the Osborne Group Chat. I'm Karen Osborne, Senior Strategist of the Osborne Group, and with me is a very special guest, Phyllis Thorne.
Hi, it's really nice to be with you today, Karen, and to all of your viewers.
Thank you, Phyllis. I'm going to introduce Phyllis more formally in a minute, but first, both Phyllis and I wanted to say to you that we hope you are safe and we hope you are well. And if you're not well, we hope you're on the mend and all the people that you care about in your family and your teams are safe and healthy and well. We have been in, and you know it better than even Phyllis and I know, we have been in what Jill Schlesinger of CBS News framed as triage. We have been making decisions on the fly, as situations change right under our feet. You as a leader have had to think and move. But now what Phyllis and I want to talk to you about is planning for the next stage. How do we plan for transition? How do we continue to take care of ourselves in triage and plan for transition so that we are ready for the next stage, which is transformation? So let's get started. Let me first introduce you to the amazing Phyllis Thorne. So I'm going to read some of her bio, and then I have things to say. So Phyllis Thorne is a faculty consultant with the Sanctuary Institute at the Andrus Child Development Center in Yonkers, New York. In 2013, she retired from her job as Manager of Public Information and Government Affairs at Con Edison, where she was a company liaison to community and government leaders and not-for-profit organizations. So let me just pause there. She has been on the other side of our table where she was a funder. So she knows us well from that funder community building point of view. But she also knows us on this side of the table. Phyllis chairs the board of the North Brooklyn YMCA, and she chairs the Education Scholarship Committee of the New York Metropolitan Area Chapter of American Associations of Blacks in Energy, and represents the Northeast on that association's scholarship committee. She is also the founding member of the Cardinal McCloskey Charter School Board of Directors, where she chairs the academic and sanctuary committees. So she knows us from a volunteer in the not-for-profit world. She knows a leader from that perspective, but that's not all. Phyllis has been an adjunct professor in the Masters in Organizational Leadership program at Mercy College, where she received her that's where she got her master's degree, and NYU School of Continuing Professional Studies. In 2014, she began working with the Volunteer Management Group, where she represents workshops and one-on-one consultations with clients. She presents those on subjects pertaining to philanthropy, volunteer program development, and management. So that's the third thing, right? She's a teacher. She knows how to teach. But if that is not all, she's a television movie star. Phyllis is also a panelist on the Brooklyn Savvy, a weekly cable television program that gives voice to social issues. So now let's formally welcome Phyllis. Welcome, Phyllis. I'm so glad you're with us.
Thank you, Karen. It's really great to be here. I have to say that. Yes. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're welcome. Didn't you love the way I read your bio?
I'm telling you, with all those little commentaries. Thank you so much.
All right, so you can see why we think that Phyllis brings a lot to this discussion. So here's my first question. As you think about this triage stage that we've been in, and people are working so hard. They're working from home, trying to manage their teams. A lot of them have children and families. The development profession, the advancement profession is 70% women. So a lot, and our guys now, we still have lots, 30% guys, and they're all home trying to teach their children, trying to do their work, trying to be leaders and keep things going, what are some of your initial thoughts about this crazy triage stage that we've been going through?
Well, clearly we have a lot on our plates. It's a lot to handle. And for many of us, this is a very stressful, and I dare say even traumatic time we're experiencing right now. There's a lot of instability, a lot of the unknown. There's a lot that we don't know. We haven't been here before. We haven't done things quite this way. I mean, thank God we haven't, but now we're here. So, I mean, I think I always start with self. So
Mm-hmm.
my first thing is that we have to create a sense of order. So first with ourselves, that means getting centered. That means focusing on those things that are important to us. The next thing, we have to think about our homes. Many of us are working from home for the first time, and we're working with other people in our homes that also have things that they need to accomplish. So creating that order within our homes where everybody has their space, where they can accomplish what they need to accomplish. And then our organizations, which is really important. And we have to realize that during this time, people are looking to us for that guidance and stability. So we're charged with bringing that to our organizations, those people that we work with. So those are the three areas that we at this particular time have to pay particular attention to as we create order and stability.
Yes, yes. So, you mentioned trauma, you mentioned organization and stability. You know, how do we operate? How do we take care of all of that when we have our own fears? We have our own worries.
Okay,
How can
so
we be these leaders that are keeping order and doing all the things you said when we ourselves are afraid?
okay. So we take care of ourselves. We have to get centered. And that's what I meant when I first said take care of self. And then we create a plan. I always feel better when I have a plan. All of a sudden, some of that fear, some of that anxiety is allayed because I've got a plan now, and I'm going to move through it and a strategy. So we have to have a plan, and then we have to communicate with those people on our team, our employees, our funders, our clients, all of our stakeholders. We have to communicate with them. And we have to, when we do this, we're going to be creating a structure in our organization that provides stability and helps them to feel safe. So that's important. And as we share and connect, we're going to create a sense of team. So when we have a sense of team, that's we're all in this together. We're not alone. And together there's power. We can get through this. So this is the sense of what we need to initially create within our organizations.
So how do we do that? How do we communicate in an authentic way and that creates and builds this sense of team? What are some strategies that we have?
So
I
many of us
agree with you 100%.
many of us are using online virtual tools. And this way of communicating is challenging us to create the same type of connection that we have when we're in our physical spaces together with those people that we're communicating with. It can be a little challenging, but we need to create with them an environment where our employees feel respected, needed, valued,
Mhm.
where it's safe to
Mhm.
experiment and take risks. So they need structure and guidance to do this. And in some cases, they're going to need training, which is important. So we shouldn't forget that training aspect. In addition, it's going to be important for us to connect with them in a way that they feel that it feels personal. So we need to talk to them, not only about the work, but about themselves. What are they feeling during these times?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
What are their challenges? What are their stress points? Having these kinds of connections with the various people that we need to connect with will help to bridge that gap that we sometimes lose when we're online or even on the phone as opposed to in person. So it helps
Yes,
create that
yes.
connection
I
of
love that. We
mhm,
have to check in with people. We've been telling people how important it is that they get in touch with their donors, for example, and ask them those kinds of wonderful strategic questions. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How are you thinking about those things? We have to ask our teams those exact same questions and make that connection so that, because how can you make a plan for transition if you don't even know where people are coming from, if you don't even know how people are doing? I love that. That sounds just right. And we have all these wonderful tools,
that's
right? We
right.
have all these virtual tools that we can use to do that. Um, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you, oh, and I did want to mention, and I wanted to know what your thoughts are about this, how important listening is
Mhm.
during this time. You know, you're saying that we want to check in and we want to feel authentic and all of that, and people feel safe and trust. So can you say a little bit about the role of listening and all of that?
Listening is so important because it's through listening that we understand what's going on and we create community. Hopefully your team already trusts you and have that connection in that way, but this is an opportunity to build on that trust. Open and honest communication is one of the best ways to build trust and create healthy relationships. Communicate regularly and honestly and openly with your employees, your clients, all of your stakeholders. If people feel stability when they feel close to somebody, when they understand what's going on, when they get the information about what's going on around them. It's important for leadership to have a comprehensive communication plan so that everyone has access to formal information. That's
Ah,
really important. Um, not get that's information that everybody needs, being on the same, and especially during this time when people are in crisis, they're hyper vigilant. We all are.
yes, yeah.
And we want to be informed. We feel more comfortable in our space when we have the information we need. So we'll do that through virtual team meetings,
Mm,
individual conversations. Don't forget those individual conversations, those one-on-one conversations, check-ins, checking in with people, both formally and informally, having those conversations about the work, but not always making it about the work. Sometimes
mhm.
again, going back to, so what's going on with you? How are you feeling about what's going on in your family, in your community? Those types of things are important. And I think it's also important to have what I call digital conversations. So to create a space for our employees to converse with each other, not always just about
Ah,
the work, not always about the work. But if you think about the physical office, a good part of our making relationships and keeping those relationships going is talking about what we did over the weekend
yeah.
or what's going on in this crazy world, in our families, in our spaces, how we're making things happen. So giving employees an opportunity to have those conversations now virtually, but together, where they can continue to keep that sense of community.
Yeah, that sounds so important. You know, so many of our folks have to meet a lot of goals. You
Yeah,
know, just because we're in this difficult time doesn't mean that you can't be purposeful, right?
exactly, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so uh, I'm just checking my notes to see where we are in this wonderful conversation that you and I are having. And, you know, earlier you talked about and you used the word trauma. And I've had the pleasure of having conversations with you about trauma and the fact that, you know, we think about it one way. When we hear trauma, we think about, you know, terrible, terrible things, life-changing things that happen to people. But trauma really shows up in all kinds of ways. And you said this was a traumatizing experience that people are going through. So I just wonder if you could say a little bit more about that, and how do we deal with this? You mentioned some things already, like you
Mhm.
talked a little bit about check-ins and self-care. Could you just say more about that?
Yeah, sure, sure. Chronic stress can make us feel disconnected, helpless, and hopeless in some cases.
Mm,
And
mm,
I mean, really is. And I think we all have to realize, and this is something that came up in a conversation I was having the other day, that whether we've actually gotten the virus or not, we all have been affected by the stress, the chronic stress that this virus has caused. For all,
yes,
we've all
yes,
been affected by that. So being aware of that. So during these times, we really do have to be especially kind to ourselves and
yes,
make the effort to be kind to others as well. And so self-care is very important. We can forget to do those things that we need to have, like sleeping,
mm,
getting
mm,
enough rest. All right. We're off of
mm.
our regular schedules because we're not going into the office like we normally do. So making sure that we set time aside to get the rest that we need, to eat well, to eat the foods that are healthy and feed our body, to meditate, if that's what we do, to get
Mhm,
exercise.
mhm.
Those are the things that feed our soul. And we have to ask and work not only for us, but for our employees as well. So we talked about communication a little while ago.
Yep.
Part of our communication, our weekly communication to our employees, can include ways that, to reminders, if you will, to do these things to take care of themselves.
Yes.
And I'm going to share with you at the Sanctuary Institutes, one of the tools that we share with our clients. And we call it the community meeting. But what it is actually is a, something that we do at the beginning of every meeting. And ask 3 questions. So imagine us sitting around a table and we ask everybody to ask the next person beside them these 3 questions and their answer. The first
Mm.
one is, how are you feeling? The second one is, what are your goals for our meeting? What are your goals for today? Whatever is appropriate. And the third one is, who will you ask for help? So why these 3 questions, right? The
Mhm.
first question, how are you feeling? So often when we're in this feeling stressful, we don't even know how we're feeling, right? But feelings are very important. Feelings, for one thing, are very contagious, all right?
Oh, that's true.
Right? And they direct our actions. Our feelings direct our actions, and this impacts our interactions with other people, other members of our team, and very often uh, affects the outcomes of those conversations. So how am I feeling? Really important. The second one is, what are my goals?
Yes.
Okay, that's important. Trauma and chronic stress can get in the way of our sense of future. And so
Mm.
you feel stuck. How often do you get so caught up that you're going around in circles? So asking yourself and coming back to what your goals are can help you to move forward. And
Very.
that and that third question, who can I ask for help?
Mm.
That's about community, reminding us that we are members of a community and that there are resources within our community. So
Well,
in
isn't
fact,
that also about team? Because you mentioned earlier how important it is. And as I think about our leaders out there who are trying to, under, you know, difficult circumstances, they still have to meet those fundraising goals, for example. They still have to meet those program goals. They still have to get those things done. And remembering to ask for help
yeah,
is such, because we think leaders, we're supposed to have all the answers.
Exactly.
We're in charge. We're the ones that are supposed to be helping other people, not asking for help ourselves. I love that. How do you feel? What are your goals?
Yeah.
Helps us stay focused. And then to ask for help. I
Right.
love that.
And this is great in a team meeting because now you have a sense, not only have you allowed everybody in that meeting to plug into their own feelings and goals and knowing that there's a community there, but you've got a sense and everybody else in that room has a sense of how other people are feeling. And it helps us to now be able to work better together, a better understanding of each other.
Oh, that is just, and our listeners know, if they know the Osborne Group at all, they know that we are so big on strategic questions. We think strategic questioning and listening is, it's the way you build relationships. And so I love these three questions, and I think they're going to be so useful for our viewers and our listeners. One last question that I really wanted to ask so now they're doing their self-care, they're asking their questions, they're doing their team meetings, but now they have to start thinking about what happens next.
Mhm.
And is that something that they should be doing as a team? Is that something, how do we start thinking as a leader about that transition stage?
Mhm.
Because we're going to have to bring our teams back in some way. They're
Mhm.
going to have to come back in some way back into the office. They're going to have to get work done. This is not going to last forever.
Mhm.
So as a leader, I have to be thinking about that transition stage. And do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, I do. I mean, think about it. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to be anxious about going back into the workplace. Uh, and so as leaders, how do we make it comfortable? How do we orchestrate that? And one of the things that comes to mind is we've got to create guidelines. Again,
Mhm,
when people feeling unsafe, when there are rules and regulations, when there are guidelines, these are these guidelines we can create initially, but then move out to include our employees, our staff members, those people that are coming back into that space, include them, ask them, what is it that is going to make them feel comfortable? What are they challenged with? What are their fears? If we understand what they are, then we can accommodate them. And it's also important to keep that dialogue going because we've never done this
mhm.
before. This
Yeah,
is this is brand new.
it's all new.
All right. And when they'll come up with ideas, but then when we get into the space, we'll find other things.
Yes.
We'll this should be an ongoing conversation between us and our staff members, always checking in and asking, how is it going? How are we doing? That's
And,
very, very
and being
important.
open to
Ah,
the
yeah,
advice that you get and that you hear.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
This has
exactly.
been so awesome, Phyllis. I am just so thrilled that Phyllis White-Thorne has joined us today and given us her pearls of wisdom and these questions that we can use and these reminders about self-care. We so appreciate you. Any last thoughts for our audience?
Well, Karen, it's really been a pleasure being here, and I want to thank you once again for inviting me. Um, Two important antidotes to trauma and chronic stress are predictability and trust.
Mm.
It's important to create an environment that is structured, where people know what is expected of them, get information that's important to them, and feel valued, appreciated, and
Mm.
safe. I really want to put that in because during times of stress and trauma and where things are, seem helter skelter, feeling safe is very, very important. We're all experiencing the stress and the sadness and concern associated with this pandemic. But if we remain focused on what's important, take
Yes.
care of ourselves and those around us, and use this as an opportunity to reflect, learn, and transform, we can come through this
We
better
can.
than ever. That I really believe.
I do too. Thank you so much. And all of you out there listening to us, be safe, be well, and we'll see you next time.